I'm happy to see that our pal Don Lemon did not miss the big Grammy party after being arrested at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Now, I'm laughing because this is what Lemon wanted to happen. And I write about it in my column on BillO'Reilly.com, and I hope you take a look. And it's not really an important story, but it is demonstrative of where we are in this country right now. So there is an enormous drive to portray President Trump as a fascist brutalizer, and the ICE roundup of illegal migrants is the spear point of that drive. That's a very important story because now foreign money is involved. So let me encapsulate it all in the talking points memo. The corrupt U.S. media is not very interested in the story we broke last week, whereby we named an American citizen, a man named Neville Roy Singham, a billionaire tech guy who lives in Shanghai, China, and works in concert with the communist government there. We told you that he is pumping tens of millions of dollars into the United States to foster rebellion. He does this through 501c, nonprofit, far left organizations. The money comes from China into those organizations. The organizations pay protesters to go out and commit mayhem. If you missed our reporting, which is now worldwide, we broke this story in detail. It is on BillO'Reilly.com. If you become a concierge member, which will enhance your life, you can get a transcript of every single word I say. Okay? But if you're not familiar with the story, go to BillO'Reilly.com and look at what we did last week. Now, you would think that every American would say, we can't allow foreign adversaries like China or Russia or the jihadists to pump money into our country to destabilize it. That's terrible. You've got to stop that, right? Well, it doesn't seem like the corrupt American media is very interested. CNN didn't mention the story. MS Now didn't mention it. David Muir on ABC News didn't mention it. David was busy covering the weather as he usually does. NBC, CBS newscast didn't mention it. We kind of missed it. I don't know how. It was out there big. Fox, Newsmax, and especially News Nation. They're the best at it. They did highlight the story. So you have to ask yourself, why would these major television news agencies, and the newspapers weren't very aggressive covering it either, why would they do it? Because it doesn't fit in to their main goal of destroying Donald Trump. That's why. Simple as that. Horrible. It's just horrible. Now, over the weekend, there were protests in the usual places, Los Angeles, Portland, Oregon, and a few others around the country. They didn't amount to much. But LA and Portland are very active 501cs. They get a lot of money, and they hire people and get people out there to create mayhem. In LA, second largest city in the country, there were 8 arrests. Okay? None of those people will be charged. Here's what the mayor said. Go.
I believe there's still about 150 people that are in an intersection. And I know that there have been arrests, and I believe they're up to about 5 arrests right now. And those arrests are for failure to disperse. You know, of course, that the overall reason for the protest today was in solidarity with Minneapolis, and that there were protests all around the country.
Well, they really weren't. This is in Vietnam. There was the usual far-left cranks mobilized in social media. They have lists and names, send them out, go here. You know the drill. All right. Now, in concert with all of this is Minneapolis. So tomorrow, the mayor of the town, Jacob Fry, far left guy, has to deliver information to a federal grand jury. Now, we thought last week that he would have to appear himself, but that's not the case now. He's been subpoenaed, and the federal prosecutors have asked for information. Okay, we're having a lot of trouble getting what the Justice Department is doing. The FBI delivered the subpoenas not only to Fry, but to the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, as best I can determine. All right, this is the reason. And we have, believe me, spent hours on this. The investigation is into whether Fry and Walz obstructed or impeded federal law enforcement during a sweeping immigration operation in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. So those two men are being investigated on federal charges of obstruction of justice. Not insurrection yet, not rebellion, obstruction of justice. That is what we can ascertain. But I can't swear to it. Now, we've been in touch with the FBI. They're not going to tell us anything. And I understand when you have an active investigation, whether it's local, state, federal, cops don't want to be feeding stuff out. They want to gather the data. Oh, right, I got it. But this is so important for the American people to know. So what are you looking at in Minnesota? FBI, Justice Department, Pam Bondi. What are you looking at? That's all. All right, you know, we are a due process outfit here. We're not going to convict anybody of anything. Just give us an overview. Very difficult to get anything. In addition, the FBI has now taken over the investigation into the death of Alex Preddy. You'll remember on January 24th, he was shot dead by Border Patrol agents, and it's a big controversy. It's driving a lot of this, of these protests. And we're not litigating it here. That's insane. That's what they do on the corrupt television networks. We're not going to do that. But it is important that the FBI investigate this because the Border Patrol can't investigate the Border Patrol. ICE can't investigate ICE. That's crazy. So I'm happy to hear that. All right. But the bigger story is the rebellion by a state. And Victor Davis Hanson, and we send our condolences to Professor Hanson because he has lung cancer, wrote a column that mirrored mine. I think it broke yesterday. That look, this is no different than what happened before the Civil War with the South. It's no different. It's the same exact thing. States going, blank you, federal government, we're going to do what we want, and let's see what you got. Big. So I hope that you understand my job is to get as much information to you as I can. We're all over this thing. And that's the memo. Now, the other part of the story is the Treasury Secretary, Bessent. All right, now we have put a call into the Department of the Treasury and asked for the Secretary to come on and talk to me. We got a big middle finger. Very disrespectful, extremely so. Very disappointed because I like this guy. Scott Bessent has been a good Treasury Secretary. He's articulate. But you don't do that, Mr. Secretary. You don't do that to a worldwide news agency that reaches tens of millions of people. You don't say, you know, just ignore the request. So maybe got lost in the, I don't know. But here's why we want to talk to Bessent. Because one of the heroes of this whole story is Congressman Jason Smith of Missouri. We had him on last week. Now, he is the chair of the House Committee on Ways and Means. And last October, that committee asked Secretary Bessent to look into revoking the tax-exempt status of these radical left organizations that are destroying American cities and putting ICE agents in danger. That was in October. Nothing's been done. Besson hasn't mentioned it. Now, we find out that last week, he's now looking to recruit a new quote unquote top cop to police these nonprofits. Boy, you're late to the game. And that's what we wanted to talk to him about. Come on, let's go. There's some urgency here. People are dying, literally dying. I mean, the danger to ICE agents is through the roof, not just civilians. And these are the groups that are doing it. And they're getting tax-free exempt status and taking money from Shanghai. This is what I mean about a giant federal colossus. Okay, federal government, they don't act quickly and they don't tell you much. One more caveat, because I want to introduce President Trump into this debate. Trump is a very candid guy, very transparent. He answers to all the questions. I mean, I like the answers, but he does. But nobody even asked him about this. They're not even asking him about it. They're trying to do an Epstein thing on him. That's all they care about, Epstein. Because they think they can get him. They're not going to get him on Epstein. This is just garbage. This is the story. Joining us now from Madison, Mississippi, it's Chris Hinkle, former FBI supervisory agent. He now runs J.N. and Associates, a investigative service. Resume is impeccable. Knows the FBI as well as any human being in the country. Thank you for speaking with us, Mr. Hinkle. First of all,
thank you for having me on.
12 minutes, I just rambled. Did I make any mistakes in your opinion?
I didn't hear one mistake.
Okay. I am frustrated as a journalist because I believe the federal government has more of an obligation to paint this picture than they're doing. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And I've been a proponent, and I've made recommendations to the FBI through my contacts that we need to get back to the business of the day of having the professionals in the room. Hold a press conference, stand before a podium, have the people with subject matter knowledge around you, get briefed on it, give your briefing, and then field questions to reporters so that the reporters can get the information that we need. This running around to different podcasts, and no disrespect to yours, I understand why there is some reluctance because you ask cogent, civil and cogent pointed questions. And those things are often tough for our elected and appointed representatives.
Well, if they can't answer, they can just say, I can't answer now. Look, we put in a call to Kash Patel. He turned us down. All right, he doesn't want any part of this. Head of the FBI. Okay. I mean, Comey wasn't going to come on when Biden was in. We got it. And then Besson did what Besson did. But right now, what I'm looking at is a story where a foreign adversary, through an American citizen, is pumping in tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars to foster violence in this country. And we can't get any kind of direction from the people who are supposed to protect us from that. That's crazy.
I do think that they do need to take the time to say, here are the things that we are doing, that we're looking into. You don't have to name specific people because I do think that would be a violation of due process. But you can say, here are the activities that we're looking into. You can say, here are some of the things that we're doing. You don't have to get super technical on it. I am confident that the FBI is looking into this. They're very good at tying things together, from financial to physical actions to networks and things like that. It does take time.
But it would make them look good if you're very confident, and you know way better than I do, it would make them look good to explain it. See, this is the conundrum. It would make Kash Patel look good. Now, I know he has to get permission to do it. I understand the bureaucracy of the FBI is ridiculous, but it makes the federal government look good if they can explain, look, we're taking this seriously, right?
I agree. I think you should talk about the investigative measures that you are taking. What I counter people with are the people out there that are saying, I want to see somebody in handcuffs right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. We don't do that.
I'd like to see people in handcuffs, but I don't want to see people in handcuffs only to have their case overturned later.
Yeah, unless
I want
there's
eyes
evidence
dotted,
about
T's
it. Right, right. Now, do you believe, as a trained investigator, many years of experience, that the state of Minnesota, under Walz and Fry, is in rebellion against the United States, or am I overstating this?
I don't think you're overstating it. As my good friend Jim Galliano said in his New York Post piece, it has all the hallmarks of insurrection that's going on from these individuals in these states. These states can't come in and tell the federal government, you're not going to enforce federal law, and they're not to put obstacles in the way. We have the supremacy clause under Article 6 of the Constitution of the United States that says that we get to do this. The president has plenary power under Article 2 of the as the Article 2 branch of the United States to execute these types of investigations. And I'll go even one step further. Under the Alien Enemies Act, with dealing with foreign nationals that are coming in and affecting things inside through crime and stuff, that case was litigated back in 1948. And you know what the Supreme Court said? It's not subject to judicial review. The president has this power. And when we have a governor and a mayor trying to stand in the way of that, it puts lives in danger, not just the citizens' lives in danger.
There's already been
It puts these officers' lives in danger.
These two Minnesota citizens who were killed would be alive if the Minneapolis police had protected the ICE agents. Right?
Well, not just protected the ICE agents, but protected the citizens. It's a very dangerous situation.
But stood in the middle and
Yes.
prevented this kind of chaos. But they didn't.
And that's not a violation. That's not a violation of your First Amendment rights. You have a right to protest. You have a right to march. You have a right to
Yeah, but they
in
were
that area.
interfering in the
You
investigation.
don't have a right to interfere in a law enforcement operation.
And that's what they were clearly doing, both of the victims. All right, Mr. Engel, I hope you will, if you get anything, any inkling, because I want to be fair here. I'm not looking to downgrade the FBI or anything like that. I am almost beside myself in the sense that I don't think their messaging is helping this country right now. That's where I'm coming from.
I agree.
All right. So if you can cajole them or whatever, Kash Patel is welcome anytime on this program. And if he can't answer, I'll respect that. I'm not going to scorn him or anything like that. All right, Mr. Engel, thanks very much. Really appreciate it. Here is the final thought. The documentary Melania in the theaters over the weekend. Of course, the Trump haters hate Melania. They hate anything to do with Donald Trump. They hate. Movie did pretty well. About 10 million, highest for a documentary in many, many years. It got mocked, it got scorned, it got lied about. And the leader of the pack, again, is Jimmy Kimmel. Go.
This weekend, the long-anticipated documentary Melania will hit theaters. According to the Wall Street Journal, Melania pocketed $28 million of the licensing fee for the film. You know, between this and her marriage, she's probably the highest-paid actress in the world. Melania, the movie, is expected to bring in between $1 and $5 million at the box office, well behind the horror movie Send Help, which incidentally would have been a much better title for the documentary.
All right, so number one, Jim booted the gross of the documentary. Number two, we cannot confirm that Melania Trump pocketed $28 million. I find that extremely hard to believe. Not that Jimmy Kimmel cares. He doesn't. But I don't think so. Could be wrong. Maybe somebody slipped her the coin. I don't know. But we can't confirm it. And here's why I'm doing this. Do I care what Jimmy Kimmel said? No. I guess as I get older, I get smarter. I don't know. I don't care what Don Lemon says, what Steve Kerr says, or Jimmy Kimmel says. To me, it's amusement. It's like Mad Magazine. That's what it's like. Remember Mad Magazine? Look what they say. But this wave of Trump hatred has really taken root in this country. I mean, people, that's all they hear now. Trump is the devil, he's a fascist, a Nazi, on and on and on. That I object to. Because there's not another counter to that. There's a Fox, there's Newsmax, and, News Nation tries to be fair on both sides. But it's overwhelming. It's 85, 90%. We hate him, we hate him, we hate him. Not good on any level. It really isn't. And that's why I report on stories like this. Thank you very much for watching and listening to the No Spin News. Got a good week, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Had an extensive conversation with President Trump this morning. It's always, I don't know what the word is. It is a privilege to talk to any president, even the bad ones. I respect the office that much. But when you're talking with a contemporary president who you've known for 35 years, it is, I still can't process it all. But anyway, the president called me because he saw the No Spin News and our reporting on the China situation with this Singham guy in Shanghai funneling millions of dollars into the USA that are going to 501c nonprofit radical left organizations to foster violence and chaos in Minneapolis, Portland, LA, and other places. The president watches the No Spin News on a regular basis, comments a lot, but this one was serious. So he asked me if I would send him our backup for what we have. Now, ordinarily, I would not do that as a journalist. I mean, what we assemble here in-house is protected by the First Amendment. But it's the President of the United States. And this is a horrible situation that is damaging our country. So I decided to send him what we had. And I think I made the right decision. I'd back it up 1,000 different ways. But my job is not only to analyze the news honestly, and I do, but it's to look out for you. And if we're going to have an adversarial country, China, all right, through an American citizen, this guy Singham, funnel money into here to cause violence and death, everybody's got to know. So the government does know, as we reported, the House Ways and Means Committee are on this guy Singham. They have known about it for a while, but there's not an urgency until this morning. President Trump was urgent about this. I got it over to him fast. My staff is the best. And we encapsulated, boom, 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 A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that reporting has not been challenged. And it won't be. All right, we're serious people here. You got the President of the United States and world leaders all over the globe watching this broadcast because they know we're serious people. We broke this story. Others had mentioned it, but we did all the work to link it all together. And I thought you should know about that conversation. So talk a little bit about Iran, which is obviously heating up as the U.S. Navy shot down a Iranian drone today. He asked my opinion. I gave it to him. I'm not going to share it here because it's not the right place. And I could be wrong on Iran. I'm not wrong on China and violence and all of that. But Iran, I don't have the connections that I do have other places, like Russia. I told the president, because he read Confronting Evil about Putin, who's on the cover, and the Ayatollah Khomeini's on the cover. How ironic. All right. I said the trade deal with India, which we'll tell you about in a little while, where Modi, the president, says he's not going to buy any more Russian oil, is huge. Putin's furious. Absolutely furious. And the president said, well, how do you know that? I said, because I got guys over there. I can't tell you who they are because if Putin ever found out, he'd kill them. He would. But Putin knows. India cuts off their oil purchases from Russia. And then you got Xi coming up in April, okay, which could happen too. It's it for Vlad. So all of this, talk about waking up in the morning. Wow. All right, talking points memo, death on the left. Okay. Ma'am Donnie, 34 years old, elected mayor of New York City. New York is having a worse cold wave it's had in 4 decades. 16 people dead so far, 13 hypothermia. 13 froze to death. Why? Because Mandami is not forcing homeless people into warming centers, as every other mayor in New York City's history has done. Let that sink in. 34-year-old guy can't run a Taco Bell. He's running the largest city on earth, in the United States. Okay? 13 people froze to death because Mandami will not enforce the cold weather emergency program, which is now turned into Code Blue. Very simple. When a New York City police officer sees someone in distress and it is below freezing, the officers take the person into custody and bring them to a shelter or a warming center. And Dami says no. Didn't order it. There's no official order, but the cops are standing down. Okay. We all have the picture here. Now, Mandani's got to explain himself with 13 hypothermias, correct? Here's what he said.
The deaths that we have seen, at this time, it does not appear there is any relationship between encampments and what we've seen with these 16 New Yorkers. The policy on encampments, we have long said that it was a failure to pursue a policy in the manner that the previous administration did, and we've said that it's a failure because of its having only connected 3 New Yorkers with permanent housing over the course of 365 days.
That's just gibberish. That's all it is gibberish. You know? It gets me angry. Answer the question. Why didn't you take all these people in? Why'd you leave them out there in 2-degree weather? Why? Oh, they have a previous policy. Come on. So, I'm not going to accuse the mayor of a crime, but neglect? My God. Minneapolis, same thing, different scenario. This is going to be harsh, but here it is, and it's true. If Walz and Frey, governor and mayor of Minneapolis, had done the right and legal thing and provided protection for ICE from state and city cops, the 2 people who are dead would be alive today. That is the truth. So Renee Good and Alex Preddy would be alive because what they were doing was interfering in a federal investigation. The local police could have prevented them from doing that by arrest or just telling them, move along. For example, if the Minneapolis police had been on Preddy's block when they should have been because they knew there was trouble there, but they stood down, they could have blocked Preddy from coming at the ICE agents, which he did. Preddy went out of his way to insert himself into an investigation. The Minneapolis cops could have blocked that, but nobody in there. Same thing with Good in the car. The Minneapolis cops could have gone up to the car, said, move along, madam, or you're going to be arrested. If she didn't move along, they arrest her. ICE agents should not have to do that. They should not be in danger. The local cops should be providing security. That's called public safety. Right? So now we got 13 dead because of the communist Mandani in New York City, and 2 dead because of the far left radical governance of Minnesota. Now, am I surprised? No. This happens in every totalitarian left-wing place on the planet. I mean, look, if you read Confronting Evil, all right, you see Every single communist and socialist nation does this stuff. They don't care about human life. On and on and on and on. So I wanted to bring it to your attention because it's going to get worse. You cannot have a system where some laws are obeyed and others aren't. You cannot allow people to freeze to death. You have to forcibly remove them. The drug addicts don't care if they die. I know that. But we as a society have to care. Don't we? And that's the memo. Today, President Trump meeting with Gustavo Petro, the Colombian president. Colombia, not an important country for the United States. We trade with them, but not a big deal. The problem with Colombia is narcotics, okay, particularly cocaine. Crack cocaine, powder cocaine. And remember, fentanyl is now put in the cocaine. I think that's what killed Tommy Lee Jones's daughter in San Francisco. So I don't have inside information here, but what I suspect is that Colombia and the United States will reach a deal to share resources or something to fight the drug traffickers inside Colombia. I believe that will happen. Let's put it that way. India, I went over it with you. I can't tell you what a big story this is. And of course, the media ignores it because it doesn't help them damage Trump by saying, hey, the president's doing pretty well overseas. And he is. I mean, the presentation about Greenland, I told him, if you guys, I said, look, you can't be threatening invading Greenland. But I knew it was going to work out, just like Panama worked out. But if you go down the list of accomplishments overseas, for Donald Trump, it's phenomenal. There's nobody close to him in modern times as far as foreign affairs. Problem is that Americans don't care about foreign affairs. And when I say problem, I'm talking about the midterm elections. So emerging as the major problem for the Democratic Party and President Trump is the cost of health care insurance. That is worrying people. It's out of control. And I don't know what the president's going to do about it. Very complicated issue. A couple of polls. Used to be the Kaiser Family Foundation. That's not. They changed their name to KFF. They did a poll. Okay, 1,400 U.S. adults. First question. Think about the past year. Would you say your cost of living has increased a lot? 50%. Whoa. Increased a little. 32. That's 82%. Stayed about the same, 12. That is not a good number for the president. Second question, how worried are you to be paying these bills, health care? Very worried, 66. Not worried, 34. Food, 57 worried, 43 not. Rent, mortgage, 52 worried, 48 not. Monthly utilities, 57 worried, 43 not. Pew poll, this is different than the poll I just gave you. It's very simple. Do you approve or disapprove of Donald Trump's handling his job? Approve 37, disapprove 61. Obviously, that is not a great number for Donald Trump. Next question, do you think Trump administration's actions since taking office last year have been better than expected, about as expected, worse? Better, 21, about 28. That's 49%. That's not a bad number. Worse, 50. So it's about a tie. Another poll. This is the McLaughlin poll. Now, John works for President Trump. So it's a Republican-generated poll. That being said, John McLaughlin's been very accurate. We wouldn't use him if he wasn't. So, 1,000 likely voters. The Pew poll is 8,500 U.S. adults. Nothing to do with likely voters or registered voters. Okay? These are the people who are avid under McLaughlin. Question, do you approve or disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing? Approve 50, disapprove 47. That is the biggest discrepancy I've seen quite some time. Okay? Do you support or oppose deporting known criminal and terrorist migrants? Support 87, oppose 10. Do you support or oppose deporting all migrants? Support 62, oppose 32. That startling number right there. Joining us now is John McLaughlin from upstate New York. So when you saw the Pew poll goes way the opposite way of your poll, you said to yourself, what?
Let me check the internals. Let me check the demographics, how they did it. And it's only, it's literally 28% Republican. We model ours after actual voter turnout. My survey matches up with the CNN exit polls from the last presidential race. Their poll, we had Republicans 35%, Democrats 34%, very close to the CNN poll. Their poll has only 28% Republicans.
So are you saying they cooked the books here?
Sure, they've been cooking the books. These media polls have been cooking the books against Trump since 2016. Remember the Hillary lock? Yep. There was no way Trump could win.
All right, so that's a pretty strong accusation you're making against Pew, that they're cooking the books. They're trying to get the negative number to hurt Trump going forward. And you believe that?
Oh, I believe it. Because it's adults, and they know it's not apples to apples, but they get a big headline. And you look at polls, I mean, there's been a series of them in the last couple of weeks. Our friend Larry Kudlow did a series on this where you have when you look at the New York Times poll that was registered voters, they only have 38% Trump voters. We got 50 in the last election. We got 50% of the vote. We won the popular vote. You have polls like the Economist YouGov. They come out with a poll where they had in their poll, you're referring to notes, I got to refer to my notes, but they had more Harris voters, 46%, to only 34% Trump voters out of 1,722 adults. This is adults. They could be interviewing illegal immigrants for all I know. And you have the same thing with Pew, where Pew, it's adults. And they do it with an online panel.
I believe you. You don't have to convince me any further. I believe you that they're not honest polls. No surprise in this country at this point. Now, when will the polling matter for the midterms? Still 10 months away. And when do you think that people will begin to lock in on? Because this is vitally important for President Trump.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think the voters pay much attention to the polls as we do. They're going to vote based on their own situation. And we have the Republicans down to in the generic ballot. Most of last year, and certainly in 2024, the Republicans were ahead in the generic ballot for Congress, which it doesn't, when you come down to it, it matches up by people vote on the names that are in their district. And but generically, the Republicans shouldn't be 2 points behind the Democrats. The Republicans need to get much more aggressive. They need to run a contrast election. For example, in that same poll where we had 87-10, they favored deporting criminal illegal immigrants. In the same poll, when we asked, would you defund and abolish ICE, 46% of all voters said they would, 48 didn't. And when you're looking at disconnect, well, who is going to deport criminal illegal immigrants? It's the immigration. So the Democrats, and you mentioned it up front about this fellow Neville Singham from overseas funding a campaign against immigration. If you get rid of the immigration police, you have open borders. You then the country's destabilized, and these illegal
people don't link it together. It's all an emotional response. We know that, but this healthcare and insurance situation, coupled with car and house insurance. Insurance companies are battering the American people. I talked to President Trump about this. Right. And, if that continues unabated for the next 10 months, the Democrats could win on that alone.
Right. And we did a survey for the Great American Health Alliance. Last week, it was released in Washington. Almost 4 to 5 voters support healthier savings accounts. This was an idea Steve Forbes came up in 95, 96 as a presidential race, where you get money that's tax deductible. Could be your own money, could be your employer's money. It's in an account, and you buy insurance above that.
Trump did that. Trump announced that last week.
Right. What a coincidence. But now you have to get Congress to change the laws to allow this to happen.
Okay.
And
but maybe they will and maybe they won't. The messaging, though, on all of this, look, it's very clear, John, and I don't know how you, as opposed to you, process this. There are two issues the press, the media is driving: Epstein and ICE. They don't want to know about India or favorable trade agreement, or they don't want to know about savings accounts that would, provide money for kids, and they don't want to know about any of that. Okay, right. Because the two issues that they've latched onto, they believe the corrupt American media will damage the Republicans and Trump in November. So they're going to just jam this all day long, every day, and that's what's happening. So how do you overcome that?
You have to overcome it the way President Trump did in his last campaign. The tough part is he's not on the ballot this time. And
but he really is. He really is.
He is. Well, but it's the disadvantage because people are voting on you as a national referendum, even though you're not on the ballot.
Right.
Has to get outside the beltway. In the campaign, we broke through the mainstream media by going out directly to the voters, using social media. President Trump did like over 100 policy videos. People that would go to his rallies, we might get 100,000 people there. You would have hundreds of thousands of people send us emails and texts trying to go. The campaign could then use that information to promote ideas and our position on the issues and do a contrast, a straight contrast with the Democrats. President Trump ran because he ran directly against Biden and Harris's failed policies. The Republicans need to hold Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries accountable for open borders, for wanting to raise taxes. How can they talk about affordability when every Democrat in the House voted to raise taxes by $4.5 trillion this year? That's what they did last year. They voted to do that.
They voted against the bill. But
no one's holding them accountable. We have to get out there. We have to go outside the beltway.
Well, I don't know about the we, but it's going to be tight. But I think things will happen. Dramatic things are going to happen in the next 9 months that will, and we really appreciate you talking to us, John, from time to time. If you see any trends emerging, let us know. I think about September, the polls will really start to matter. And thanks for coming on tonight. Final thought of the day, I'll be at the Super Bowl unless I keel over or something, but got a lot of business out there in San Francisco. Over the weekend, we are going to have a special on Thursday. And this is not just for sports people. I want to emphasize this. So this is Super Bowl 60 that's happening on Sunday. Super Bowl 3 was the biggest upset in football history, okay, as far as the playoffs are concerned. That was the New York Jets against the Baltimore Colts. The third time Super Bowl was played. Everybody thought the Colts were going to win except me, because I knew the Jets, and they practiced a half mile from my home in Levittown, and I used to ride my bike all the time, and I knew the Jets were going to win. One other guy knew, the quarterback, Joe Namath. Okay, so we have a special on Thursday, me going one-on-one with Namath. Roll the tape for a preview. Some of the Jet players have told me that after the game was over and you were on the field, none of the Colts came over to congratulate you.
I don't know. I wasn't looking for him.
But do you remember anybody coming over? Did Don Shula come over? Did anybody come over and say, Joe, excellent game? Did anybody do that?
Yeah, I believe Ordell Bracey may have a linebacker. There isn't.
Yeah, he's a good
He asked me, and he told me to remember the Lord. Remember Jesus Christ.
Okay, so one did. But they didn't come over in a mass congratulations. They were mad.
Well, I imagine they were sick, too. Yeah, you know, they fully expected to win, and they were overconfident. You know, they ran through the NFL that year, man. They had a really good team.
It's a really good interview. And we talk about Joe Namath's prediction that he would win the game. He got in trouble for that prediction. And I love Namath. I just think he's the greatest guy. He's 82. He's become a very good friend of ours. He was nice enough to sit down and give me all the inside stuff. So that will be on Thursday in this space. I will be on a plane heading out to San Francisco where they love me. You know they love me out there. They can't wait for O'Reilly to pull into town. I'm going to be tweeting all throughout the weekend. You guys are going to like it. I'm meeting up with my pal, Stephen A. Smith. Boy, oh boy, this is going to be something. Thank you very much for watching and listening to the No Spin News this evening. I'm Bill O'Reilly. We'll see you again tomorrow.